Welcome to Conversations with Verdel Jones. I'm your host, Verdel Jones, and being an educator at heart, I'm dedicated to sharing conversations that inform and enlighten in the hopes that you learn something you may not have known. So thank you for tuning in. We are here live at Paradise Studio on the Strong Island Television Network. I want to thank everybody for watching, and please make sure you like and share the show so everybody can check out what's going on. Before we really get into it, I want to let you know that this is season 5 of the show, and season 5 is about embracing your life, and we'll be here every second and fourth Thursday. A new time though, 6:30 p.m. Great guests, great conversations. Welcome back to Conversations with Verdel Jones. As you see, I have my first 2 guests here, and we are very excited to have them. We have Amanda Facina, and she is the Next Long Island Project Manager. And we have Coralie St. Louis, and she is the nextLI Outreach and Engagement Manager. So when I got, and you have a copy of it, just show people this copy right here. When I got this, and you know what, I don't even remember how I got it, but I'm a Newsday subscriber, so I must have got it in my news.
Yes.
I was really intrigued by the information that was put together from Next Long Island. So if you can explain to everybody, what is Next Long Island about, or nextLI about?
Sure. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
So nextLI is a project of Newsday that is made possible through a grant from the Rouse Foundation. So it's an interesting combination of powerhouses on Long Island. And basically, we were trying to build a digital town hall that can connect Long Islanders, so we could talk about the future of the region and the challenges and of what people face here.
Right. So I'm assuming that there was some type of impetus to why this data was collected and why people were surveyed. And we're going to talk about how you got the data and all of that. What was the reason for conducting such research as this?
So I think Coralie's out in the community a lot, and we're seeing all these people having conversations about the next generation of Long Islanders, but there is no concrete data about who they are, what they think, and what they want the future here to look like. So we thought, let's set out and actually get some numbers to put to it.
Right, because you can say anything, right?
Yeah.
So what's
Exactly.
going on at your community outreach manager? So what types of things were you hearing, and was it before you got started with the research, or just explain that a little bit?
So that was before you got started with the research, but basically the survey itself was to be able to profile the next generation of Long Islanders. But before we did the research, I was out in the community trying to better understand what some of the challenges were and what the issues were that people were mostly concerned about. And people just wanted to know what is going on with this generation. What are they thinking? They're coming back, they're leaving. How do we keep them here? How do we get them going? How do we give them a better future? And that's why we wanted to do this survey.
It's very comprehensive. So let's just jump into it a little bit. How many people were in the survey? What was the demographics and age groups of the survey? Like, who did you speak to?
Sure. So it was very important that this survey hold up to any standards of modern polling, and because of that, we hired an outside vendor to actually conduct it for us, called YouGov. They do a lot of online surveys, and we picked.
So this was online.
Yes.
Okay.
We picked online on purpose. We talked about it for a while, and
like how to get this information, right?
How to get this group,
right?
And every research company we contacted told us that you're not going to get them on their cell phones. They're not going to pick up. So it's online. And it was very important to us, too, that the people that we surveyed match the demographics of the region.
Okay.
So it's, professional statisticians went by the census numbers of the racial and ethnic breakdown of Long Island. And then we set quotas for how many of each group had to be surveyed to be statistically relevant.
Like valid.
Right.
So you actually, when people answered how did you get the survey to people?
So YouGov was very, very helpful with this. So we did the questionnaire, and it was dozens and dozens of questions on so many issues.
Okay.
And basically, YouGov has a panel that they draw from. It's millions across the country, but they were able to geo tagged down to Long Island, and
okay.
they summon their panel and say, hey, you want to take a survey for Newsday Next Long Island, and then it hits make sure it hits all the quotas.
Right.
We ended up with around 1,800.
Okay.
And that's both current Long Islanders in the 18 to 34 age group, and those who are currently living in New York City but were born on Long Island.
Okay.
So we were able to have two different samples.
Two different kind of perspectives, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, the study answers the question: who's the next generation of Long Islanders? And one of the things that in reading the study, they were talking about suburbia and how suburbia got started, and everybody knows about Levittown and World War II veterans coming home and all of that. And Long Island is really a suburbia. It's the beginnings of a suburbia, back in the day. Can Long Island keep that alive? And I think that's some of the things that when you look and delve into the information, you find. What did you find shocking about the statistics or the data?
I don't particularly, because being a member of that group,
Right.
there wasn't really anything surprising. It was just revealing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Especially on housing. We found that no matter what age you were at in the demographic, whether you were 18 or 34, no matter what race or ethnicity, no matter what economic bracket you fell into, housing is a challenge to every single group. And one of the reasons they don't find Long Island attractive or want to stay here. Our data journalist, he's not here tonight, but he's great with he's run these numbers a lot of different ways for us, and the survey found that 67% plan to leave Long Island in the next 5 years.
Wow.
Which is, it's a lot.
It is. So, okay, so we have this information, right? The data shows 67% of this age group, they're leaving Long Island or they plan to. What does that mean for Long Island?
I mean, they're going to lose a lot of workforce, that's for sure. And the population is aging. Who's going to take care of the older generation?
Population, yes.
Right.
So, it poses a real big economic challenge.
And also we keep talking about the brain drain and people leaving, but we're also not taking into account the people who do live here, who cannot afford to live here. What does it mean to that population, and what kind of solutions can we bring to the table to help them find more housing that is affordable?
Right. Let's talk about housing. It's a major issue, and like I said, I was reading the data, and I know just from being here that housing is really a serious issue. So let's just unpack some of the information that you were able to gather from the people who responded about housing, and what can we do, and what do they prefer. Like, you see a lot of the train stations now, having building apartments and stores like Wyandanch Rising. They had this big project. Patchogue is not the Patchogue that I grew up with, So it's just Bayshore. Like, all these little towns are trying to
revitalize.
Exactly.
And just bring something different.
Exactly.
And that's also what we found with the survey. Even though they still want the suburbs, but the next generation, they want something different. They want something more modern. They want smaller apartments. They want mixed-use housing. They want to be able to walk around. They want these downtown areas.
I want that, and I'm not in that age group.
Exactly.
It's just the way of life. They
don't want the McMansions that have come out here.
Yeah.
Don't want the 4-5 bedroom houses. More of a townhouse, walkable.
It's interesting.
That was one of the most striking finds that we offered. The way we worded the question was, which different types of housing options would you support? And it was mixed use, transit oriented, accessory apartments. We offered that as well. That came in very high too, that being able to turn some of these bigger houses into having legal accessory apartments that maybe could have multi-generational, if the grandparents and the kids are living together, they could live a little separate if you could make some apartments in these single family houses.
Interesting.
So the survey showed a lot of support for alternative housing on Long
Island.
Island.
Okay. And does that have to do with the reason why we don't have these? I mean, public policy has a big implications on all of this stuff. So how does the survey actually impact public policy? Like I'm sure people want to know this information, right?
In our mind, people can now be empowered by this data. Before, it was just you hearing it around, at the coffee shop, at the soccer field.
Right.
But now there's like actual numbers to it, and you can go to your politicians, you can bring it to your community meetings, and actually use the data to maybe show that, hey, the 10 people that might be against something who might be louder than this group.
Right.
But here, the support for it is
They're worried about traffic. That's all I hear.
Yeah.
And traffic is bad anyway.
No,
but,
it is.
But it's true. You have a few people, and we always say this when we're watching, the news, and there'll be this new project going on, and you'll have people complaining, like, they need to not do that because of traffic, and that'll lower our property values. And it has to be like a mind shift. It's okay for you to live here and live this way, but we want to keep our young people.
Right.
And that's for both.
And that's also what we want to do with nextLI outside of the data and the research and the surveys that we're doing. We want to build this community that's going to impact policies.
Right.
And that's going to be empowered with this information that we're putting out there to go out to these town hall meetings and to make their voices heard, because it's not just the silent minority anymore. We want them to be a majority, and we want to give them that information to be that majority.
Right. So 18 to 34 was the age range,
Yes,
right?
for this survey.
For this particular survey.
Yes.
So how do you get those 18 to 34-year-olds active and engaged to impact and influence the policy?
So this is what we're looking at now. So based on the survey and our findings, we realized that housing was on everybody's mind. And just outside of the 18 to 34, everybody's talking about housing, everybody's concerned about housing. So we started a housing task force, and that's made of housing organizations, people who are advocates for better housing options on Long Island.
Right.
So it's just bringing different heads together to strategize a better way to have a conversation about housing. How do we shape this narrative where people become interested in housing, and that's going to get them out to these town hall meetings and to these zoning meetings.
Right.
To have that conversation, because we're having these conversations in silos.
Yes.
And we need to be able to get together and understand where is it that we want to take the island. And that's what the task force is doing. But we also have these features and these projects that we're working on, and we really think that the community is going to be really excited about them. So we have a housing calculator that's going to look at income and rent ratio and be able to look at how much you're paying for rent in your area compared to other communities on Long Island. So you're able to compare that just to look at how much you're making, how much you're bringing in, and how much of your income is going towards rent. And we also have a map that we're building to look at the housing stocks across Long Island. So we're looking at 55 plus housing, mixed use housing units, transit oriented housing. And it's just to be able to give people a better visual of what rental housing looks like on Long Island and what needs to be done. Because it's one thing to talk about housing and to talk about the issues and the challenges that we need to overcome, but we also need to understand these challenges so we can take the conversation forward.
Right.
And that's what we're doing with these maps and the task force. So our task force this week, we're talking about affordable housing. What does affordable housing mean?
What does it mean? What does it mean in a place like Long Island, right?
Exactly. What is affordable? And it's like this term affordable, we keep hearing it, but we don't know what it means.
And it's so loaded.
Very.
And, I feel like sometimes people don't think of it as it's what your kids could afford. It's, you just have to be a little bit more open-minded about it.
Because the thing too is, we always coming from, a college, trying to get kids an educated mindset. The kids fill out FAFSA to get financial aid. That FAFSA is a federal form. So people on Long Island, anytime they fill it out, they say, I'm not getting any money, because it appears that they're making a lot of money, not compared to compared to the rest of the country. So it's kind of a similar thing in that, you could be making a nice salary, what's considered nice, but you still can't afford to live here.
Exactly.
or build up any savings.
Right.
Or it's really, and then you look at other cities and other suburbs,
And
they
you can have a nice house.
you can do
And
it.
that's why you have the exodus of people just moving
Exactly.
to different places where they can't
Yeah.
afford it. So our task force, like we've been like going back and forth all week, and it's like, hey, can we talk about housing that is affordable?
Right.
Not just affordable housing, but we need housing that's affordable for everyone, and that
Right.
fits within our budget.
Right. So we could talk about this forever, and I would
Yes.
love to talk about this forever. I have questions about diversity and all this stuff, but I think housing is such an important issue. If people want to find out more about what's going on and the projects that are going on, how can they tap into it?
So our website is next.newsday.com. Everything's on there, but we're also have a Twitter account, nextLI, a Facebook group, nextLI.
And they can always email us at nextli@newsday.com.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
This information, I love it. I would like to have you back to talk more about this stuff.
Well, we have a lot of information in
You
this
do.
book that we can
I
talk
know,
about,
I
and then
know.
like future surveys that we're working on.
Right,
So it's like
absolutely.
there's so much going on with nextLI.
So much going on. This was a
And we
pleasure.
really want to bring the community in.
Yes.
So it's not just us doing the survey and getting
Right.
these numbers out. We want the community to have a voice and
Right.
to be a part of this conversation too.
So thank you so much again for being
you.
here. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have our next guest.